Start with opening prayers in the Yellow Prayer Book. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhichitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhichitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Oh. Infinite array of worlds, each within 4 continents, and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine, by offering them all, may I be blessed with end of self-grasping, completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial. The supreme Mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood. Namo to the Guru, the utter purity of all appearance and existence. I offer all appearance and existence arisen as the primordial ground. I supplicate you, may the 3 realms be completely liberated. Please grant blessings to empty samsara from its depths. Lord with 5 omniscient wisdoms, crown ornament, kind one with loving nature, precious protector of beings, heart of all Buddhas, inexpressible by words or thoughts, I supplicate you from the core of my mind. Bless me from within the state of Dharmata. Bless me to realize this mind, primordially pure and unborn as unfathomable Dharmakaya. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
다 주로는 바다시들에 다들은 무슨 뉴스도 속해요래. 그랬다다는 저거 타임벌이 상벌이 저거지 강이 좀 왔다버리 강받다버리 남시지 밑다버리 남시지 샘지 받더니 강야 토밤해버리 샘들었더니 다가 샘디 와도 저는 삼태용나 타임벌은 이거 차대요래. 상대면은 들이 다를 못 찾고 요래. 지금서 제아진 담이 냠도 요래. 지금서 들이 빈밤에 적대 다를 뭐요. 빈밤에 오버들이 책당 생 냠도 요래. 대변은 들이 다 라마 개비신이 담지 그치 좋다래 요데 라마 개비신이 담지 상속생기 오나 공나봐 샘들이 제시요 말사 축샘나 제시비 봐라 자다 스마다와 탕이 계속 상속생분들 놓고나 누구도 들어오진 못하면 샘이 되보자 그 요를 소소 개비신이 이제 남대양들이 랑그 인터넷 라마에 봐요 이 제면은 남타는 소로를 다 공중앙에 가를 잡대요 대지 소소 세와한테 바보 같이 아니서
So, Madame friends, Shida Lake, and today we are meeting again. We actually meeting again, and so actually, as in not the body, because the body is far away. That's what we think, but the body is just like a house. And the consciousness is like the person who stays in the house, and actually, the mind is something that cannot attain anything, so there's nothing to get, nothing physical to get. Then when the mind has love, however, then even though we are physically far apart, we are actually very close. But if the mind does not have love, then we are very far away. So all of those who possess love are actually together. So the body which is not so beneficial is far away, and what is beneficial, which is the words and the mind, they are together. So we pray for the long life, for tens and thousands of years of all the spiritual masters and the lamas. But if that master has bodhichitta, then the mind transcends birth and death. And so this is why the bodhisattvas, it is said, always remain tirelessly. And so somebody possesses bodhicitta is always there. And the body
Sojong Shibadi, Sojong Shena, Sojong Ma, some Lamjerba Kangina, Yami Tanki, Sojong Tonda Chadi, Sojong, the technique Tonda, tell the Hatam Karchiorate. Yami Tanki Sojong, the Sojong Kari, so dinner Kari Sogores, Jong dinner Kari Jong, that's some check it in some Tangores. 들이 책들로 싸놓았다나 들이 등탕부터 나봐요. 토반이 생긴 참제시 내와 당 내와 저상 대바저제 이제 그거래. 샘의 요리 내와 고요래. 뭐야? 이 내와 뭐나 내와 제일 저제 요래지. 뭐야? 저제 가래리. 오, 다 싸놓았다 참아게. 뭐다 더러 속차 차긴 차와 탐지 그 유라 삼지 대상으나 다들 랑나 핀바탄 진을 되와 도도는 저쪽으로 내서 봐 양보다 가도올고 괜히 뭐 들어서 봐 맞파서 대답을 용디를 강이 중화래 다 삼지가 동굴을 나가 사와 집어라더니 이 유들 삼지를 주바요래서 핀치면 채와 이 삼재를 유디래시 삼재를 가도 다 소소라 삼재 소소 삼재를 가도 다 지금 라면 아마도 없어 대면은 그 조모는 없어 대면은 그 뽀글도 없어 그 같이 조모에 뭐 뽀글을 들이대 삼재를 하시지 않은 거래 다 삼재 짜는 매가 대답을 차대오래 되는 내가 저는 저기 다다 망 고안 주들 내가 쭉부터 그랬다 삼재시 뒤들면 뛰는 밤다 삼재 그냥 뛰 양다양들 내가 좋다 덴버 저게 수인나 뒤줄 삼재다 덴버 저게 대상으로 따르더니 들이 쏘고들이 다 삼지에 쏘고 그래. 삼지에 만용 가체도 소치 줄였다 따요 말해. 야 사족서가 이게 삼지에나 다 샘대 특과 최종도 해거든. 특과 최종도 사족서를 갖고요 그래. 특과 최종도 샘자 최종하라 그래. 들이 특과 최종나 따로 그래.
The last part also was cut off, so we continue here. And so, however, we are never changing the mind. And so, if you have an altruistic mind, then actually you are never separate from the Guru. That is, if you're able to remember the Guru. And this is also explained in Milarepa's life story, where he himself said that he will continue to pervade the 5 elements. So it is just important to supplicate, to remember. And so then regarding the Sojong, is whatever path we practice, whether it is the individual liberation, the bodhisattva path, or the Vajrayana path, the purpose is really Sojong, actually, of all these paths. And that is because So means to purify, So means to restore, and Jang means to purify. So everything is really contained within those 2 words, and they're very important. So all the practices are contained within So and Jong. And so what needs to be restored, and Jong, what needs to be purified, that's something we have to think about. So if you think about the word, the word itself, so nowadays in this world, all the Buddhists have a single prayer, and they say, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. If you have a mind, you need to be happy. And in order to be happy, there's only one cause. And so what is that cause? Everyone has that cause to some extent. It is love. Whether one is a human or an animal, even a little animal has love in their mind streams to some extent, and to that extent they experience happiness. So love is the benefit of yourself and the happiness of others. For example, if an animal has love, then it might have a beautiful voice and color and a soft fur and so on, and just live more comfortably. So the quality of that comes from the power of love. And then any activity of body and speech that we engage in with such a mind. But this is where I then missed like a little part. And so anyways, if we do not have love, then people often feel that they're lacking a friend, they feel lonely and so on. And having no love, in the end, often even people commit suicide. So the only cause of happiness is love. And we have to think about the quality of it over and over again. So when we say, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, then we are saying, may they all have love. So that is really what is restored in the Sojong, is love. And this is what really makes the difference in the vehicle. This is what makes the Mahayana. The Mahayana, it is the mind of bodhichitta. It all depends on this vast mind of bodhichitta.
대외는 상태에 양강이 아주 좋으니지 남을 이렇게 대화 탐지변아 세결제 대화 쪽 말이지 남 친구 대화 쪽이지 남 상태 쪽이지 되게 이제들이 산지 동화로 동화를 졌다 잡아주지 동화를 졌다 잡아주지 동화를 잘 보나 동화를 졌지요래 졌을 마다나 그는 제가들 다쳤고요 말해. 또한 직접 매출했더니 무서워졌더니잖아. 다시 동행 보고 타버들이 약간 탐지게 되는 백동제. 그 랑송 적세계라 단 다상 총자 때라서가 그리 랑 세 열제 대화도 쪼지고요. 말해서 여기에 지가 체리오나 낭생부 대화면아 대탐제 동네 저리 그 동네 저 가리 동네 탐지 저 양도 되나 동네 저때 유모 말이 돼 나는 유모의 진세네 설마를 사와세베 되게 파노 받아서 철을 받다는 거요. 란티프 삼들이 되겠더니 빼나 사다 빌렸다고 성화해. 따도 인도 sempre 대주바 속담청지. 몇개 나다 자카비 나다 마마이 나다 마망 끼차블라 삼고 또 마시라 란티프 대탑중아 이 되어요 말이에요. 대원의 비틀이 야랑 체험을 요래 빼나 마디가 차가 때려 동네가 저때 유모 말이지 유모가 타지 강에서 그 유모를 싸모도 유모가 나오마지 가리를 쓰고 다 싸모도 다 단디를 맞은 진짜로 말이지 나 그러면지 나 되고 나도 먹고 때도 나를 맞은 거 책장 매일이지 그랬더니 동네 말을 답대 도는 정성 라니 소주는 걸로 됐어 그래. 그래서 동네 탐색은 종자들 다 나랬지. 종대로 다 나지지 종고 그랬지. 소대로 삼태도 쏘고 그랬지. 주 탐색다 싸와 남이 사계 인연성 가능성나 쌈로동 로마 출신이 탐색에 쌈로동 제레이도가 바로 쌈로동 저기 뒤에 로렌 개고랬지. 근데 뛰는 밥을 새부터를 뛰 다 죽고랬지. 내가 저까지 옥당이 삼재랬지. 쟤는 생기가 되면 이제 삼재랬지. 너가 저등이 유모가 유모 나진이 또 다 나진데랬지. 너희들 다 죽어 다 죽으면 돼. 내가 이 집에 좀 되게 대봐야 또 동네 이제 나진 유모가 다 뒤 좋은 거랬지. 제 마조나 때다 송제 마조나 강도 요리 사다 요리 낭 생부터 요리 나딘 생부터 요리 지미로 생부터 요리 다 소종 다 냠니 참치 다 소종을 터도 사람이 선택적으로 하고 뒤에 다 소종 냠니 돼야 돼. 그래 참에 당들이 요리
And so when you think about this quality of love again and again, you really can see that this is cause of happiness in the world. All happiness comes from that. So the outer material pleasures are not most important. But what's most important is the inner happiness within the mind. And that depends on love. So then also the Buddhas have said, may beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So suffering also has a cause. And that is what we need to separate from. When we do not separate from the cause of suffering, we cannot avoid the result of suffering. So even in a worldly sense, we cannot avoid suffering. All countries in the world, for example, they try to find different ways to avoid suffering, and we use weapons and arrows and so forth to protect ourselves on the outer level. But that is because they consider the outer material happiness to be most important. But this is not true. This is wrong. The outer happiness, no matter how much outer pleasures and happiness you might have, if the inner mind is not happy, all of these outer material things just turn into the causes of suffering. So what is the actual cause of suffering? And so if we summarize it further and further, we come to one cause. It is all the afflictive emotions within the mind. So driven by the condition of the afflictive emotions, we act out with our body and speech on the outer level. So when someone hurts us, we hurt them in return and so on. So if you just think about this, like Sakya Pandita also has said with regard to the view, someone who doesn't think about the welfare of others, everything they do becomes a weapon. Their words and so forth becomes a weapon that harms others. So we can think about it in different ways, whether from a personal perspective or a more general, larger scale perspective, the whole community. If we don't think about others, if we just think about our own happiness, then there's no way that anyone can be happy. Other people will always be uncomfortable and unhappy. So it shows that the cause of suffering are the afflictive emotions. So that is something we have to think about very carefully, about each of these afflictive emotions, or the 5 poisons. And when we find that they all arise from self-grasping, it is because we think that this, I don't approve of that, I don't want that, or I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. So in the 37 practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So the source of all suffering is that self. So in the Sojong, what needs to be purified is this self-grasping. And what needs to be restored is love. And for this reason, this practice really is the root of all Dharma practice, whether it is in the Kagi, Nima, Gelopa, and so forth, Sakya. So you really have to think about it, whether this is true or not, and even have discussion groups, discuss it with each other. So you really come to a firm resolution, a decision where you make up your mind and you are certain that this is how it is. Really, love is the cause of all happiness in this and in all future lives. And self-grasping, the afflictive emotions, are the only cause of all suffering. So this is what you need to decide upon. And this is what is called the trusting faith, the trusting in karma. So the only cause of suffering is self-grasping and the afflictive emotions, and that is what needs to be purified for as long as we are still alive. Because where is it? Where is this self-grasping? It is within the mind that goes on. Altruism is also within the mind. So when you really think about it, you realize that actually the Sojong is really the root of all, the seed, the root of all Dharma practice. And if you understand that very well, then if you really think about this single-pointedly, then you will see how the Sojong is really the essence of all practices.
Then so Jong Higati, the Jata Tara Tabla, the Jati Tara Yumatangi, Pa Jong Lunga Sava, Lunga, something that is semi-tony Jongo, Lunga Yoko Tower, semi double tower, the same Jong on the Kani Jongo, some Tango, then Tabari Jongo, yeah. 소야 가리리 상태지 야 평균 그냥 도고 하죠 상보 들라 니마 들들이 진 잠들어 되니 코로 치고 라나 뒤치 상태에 내가 차대요라 까들 가리소 그래 다 도고도 나오는 차차래지 차차로 도고지 그만 류고 가든 전보면 전전바 전소아 지 라는 핀반 망보 줘요. 강이 망보 잡아 똑같이 전진이나 세부터는 제단테 다 밀차래. 다들 나 정말 성세. 들 나지 다 공들이 조랑 똑같은 정말 성세. 거기서 선생님랑 세도 똑같더라. 단 이게 제가 뒤지나 다들 기아지 아소 제단도 파도서 생구 소용 데이터가 하고 그랬지. 대부분 카드 소정 소소소 용야 가리 찾자동나 핀바이 거래 지가 선말 핀바를 몇제대로 갖고 거래 당 소아지 삼제리 또 자모를 빼장 대상으로 당스
So now the Sojong, what that means is, now we have said all suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So to separate from suffering, we need to separate from the cause of suffering. That is, we need to purify the afflictive emotions. We need to purify them in our actions of body, speech, and mind, but actually the mind is to be purified from the mind, because the body and the speech are just like a servant, while the mind is like a king. So how are we purifying them from the mind? We have to really remove these afflictions from the bottom of our hearts. And we need to restore love. And how we do that is, for example, when you think about a very good friend whom you love very much. And one day something happens and you get very angry at that friend. Then all that love is gone. So at that moment, how can you restore your love? In that moment, your friend has become like an enemy. So in that moment, you have to remember, oh, this person has been a friend for a very long time, and he has been very kind to me. So remember their kindness and also have a wish to repay their kindness. And think about the many things that friend has done to help you and so on, all the hardships they have endured. When you think about that, then the anger will go away. But if you think that, oh, what he did was not okay, and his actions were so wrong, then that is not good. So then just feel sorry for thinking that way, and immediately remember their good qualities, and then again compassion for them arises, and love arises. And so this is how love is restored, and then the anger just goes naturally away. So this is how when we practice the restoring and the purifying from within our mind. So you're thinking about a friend, for example. It's important to do it this way, because otherwise you could just say, I restore and I purify 100 times. Of course, there's a benefit in that, but the benefit is more in future lives. In this life, it will be hard, difficult to be of any benefit. So we really need to restore and purify from within. And we do that, for example, by taking such a good friend as an example.
제 삼제 야로 소아당 해당 팔경화제 서동다리 오미 조고 홍로 조바고 홍지야야 소야 상무들 말이지 지금 해당 제가 남이기 해당 려냐와리지 타나 들이 속차지 지야랑 대과라도 도저라서 해당거라서 그래지 저가지 뒤송군 그좀 좀지 기적 사람이라서 이 맞다 또 차실 차와 차 치와를 랍담 총하다 용도점들 때답게 저요래서 저는 기대 저 제가 말이 때답게 저요베지 저 말을 빨았더니 진유모 왔다 저랬더니다 세당은 아주 저런 세당이 좋아지랑 나디랑 치요래서 다시 삼지에 용을 주 삼지그랑 이 파로드서 바로 차대요래서 야 니모가라기 나디그랑이 뉴모 바로 차대요래서 대니 미나 오 파르도 서바토 진지가 내가 토리 타통 사제 공방을 되어야지 야 마미나 또 로아도 조금 그러지 로아도 뉴모가 tok 대답을 들이 다들 로아도 사우디 용화세다 로아도 사우디 조금 말 거야지 시랍고 완전히 다시 삼제의 윤디당 나딘게 중대 가까이 시네 들이 님 타관 소종 제도되는 소종들 타독 설비 타독을 가라리랑 치요아리 저들이 라리 소비만 제바송하데 뉴모부터 우리 뭐 따로와 공부 파르드스가 조용히 되어서네 파시 쪽대 다 소종도 다 대바 제라지 대회는 대라더니 소종 대라더니 카큰 동바 탑람을 초같은 데와 초같은 말이야 요리 드리자다 마시게 초같은 데 소종대 하고도 말이 초같은 말대로 소종 찍고도 하고 말이 대회는 들리던 데 보기 rinpoche 공개 받치고 거기더니 초같은 말대로 이제 소종 찍고 있냐면 제가 다 됐어 말이 소소 송황은 탈마 타더니 다 사사로 동치와 단덕이 알지고 같이 모여래 나타 라왕메페 로마나 따고서 내가 저 못하고 사들이 들랑게 다스 소종 같이 버리 생구사와래 송 이제 나와래 소종시 봐도 동다테 가고 여보 하고는 이 냠이 탐제되는 뒤독선 하고 듣게래지
So, what is to be restored is love, and what is to be purified is anger or hatred. And then, whose purpose is that? So, you might think that I'm practicing patience with my friend, so I'm doing him a favor, I'm being nice to him. But actually, that's not true at all, because you're really doing yourself a favor, because anger, the result of anger is hell. And even if you're born as an animal, then you are born as a scorpion or a poisonous snake, which are manifestations of anger or hatred. What Thigten Sumgyön had said, the karmic ripening is the is the manifestation of the moment-by-moment thoughts in the mind. So all the appearances of humans and animals, and large and small and subtle and so on, some are as large as a mountain and some are as small as a mustard seed, all of that has a cause. If there wouldn't be a cause, one wouldn't be born in that way. So the ultimate cause is ignorance, and then there are the conditions of the afflictive emotions. So letting go of your anger really is doing yourself a favor. Because if you cultivate love, the nature of love is the 6 paramitas. The nature of self-grasping are the 6 afflictive emotions. And so when they ripen, so when the 6 paramitas ripen, then temporarily you take birth in the higher realms, and ultimately you attain a state of enlightenment. And when they do not ripen, then they create the 6 afflictive emotions, then create the 6 realms of samsara. So we need to purify the root of those 6 afflictions, which mainly is ignorance. So for that, we bring up the force of wisdom, of intelligence, and with wisdom, we separate out the qualities of love and the faults of self-grasping. And then really from the bottom of your heart, you will want to practice the Sojong, because you understand that the ultimate benefit goes to yourself. You're doing your own self really a favor by practicing in this way. Or for example, according to the 37 bodhisattva practices, it explains an antidote to each of the 6 afflictive emotions, such as practicing patience and so forth. And as a result of that, then the qualities of the 6 paramitas arise. So the Sojong is the essence of all of that. And so there is different ways of practicing the Sojong. There are many different methods of recitation of Sojong practices, some relying on a liturgy and some not relying on a liturgy. Most people understand it by relying on a liturgy, the ritual sadhana. And so sometimes it's hard to understand it without a liturgy. But then there was a commentary made by Drepung Geshe, who was a great scholar, and he explained it actually not in reliance on a liturgy, but just the benefits of the Sojong in themselves, just only practicing the Sojong. And so I received this instruction immediately when I came out of prison, and really found that this is a very easy to perform practice, but it is extremely meaningful. It is very important, because that was a time where we didn't have the freedom to practice the Dharma, and therefore Sojong was very important, because it's really a practice of the mind, and this is what he granted me. So if you understand the meaning of Sojong, then you understand how it really is the essence of all practices.
내가 소종에 받아들이 특화 친구 소종도 특화 친구 소종성 특화 최종이 선거요래 얘는 특화 최종도 강의해야 되나 내 저번 적진 선거 다주 공부 적고 알았으면 특화 최종 제발 심지 인정 강사를 안 한 게 셈을 쳤다고 그래 맞아 이게 주 특화 친구래 전 특화 총을 들려줄 미니다가 요 말에 가에 따고 그러더니 또 타바치면 또 그러더니 사지 그 송을 강리 특히 배체 장소라서 세 배체 장소라는 거래 얘는 난 생물들이 특바치면 개들이 삼지 생물 강리 요래들 막 남카다냐 배체니 삼지 파마 장미 봐 simply 장미 봐 삼지 동행 탑이 봐라 사바 세미베 세미요래 되게 남고 다착 가셔를 사바가 잡대가처럼 희지가 잡대요래 대난 생고 빼도 세 잡소를 특히 빼도 잡소가 송 그래서 말해야지.
So for the practice of Sojong, we take the Sojong vows. There are like two kinds, according to the Mahayana and according to the Hinayana. But however, got dropped out. Anyways, in the Great Liberation Sutra, the Buddha had said, a Mahayana practitioner is like Mahayana is like a vast ocean. What is the mind of all the Mahayana Sangha? And they have in mind all mother sentient beings, recognizing them all as their parents, and also recognizing that all of these limitless sentient beings experience infinite suffering. So great love and great compassion arises for them. So wherever space pervades, love and compassion for sentient beings pervade. So that is the mind of a Mahayana, which is like a vast ocean.
소종님이 초가라양 이제 같이 니네랑 형님 담을 차요래 대인들 애들이 또 또라게 특바침이 생기지 사바침이 장기게 재미 요메티 랑심을 되네 이제 특바침이 생기 있네요 애들이랑 시합을지 특바침이 생기를 전에더니 라고 아마니 돈이 파마마지 받겠장 왜 봐. 그래서 사바침이 뭐가 답라더니 특바침보다는 농대 남이 제단 송가 찌이나야 비용 재정 가가에 특과치 정도를 하고 나타 조금 잡을 삼무당 더군데 왜 나타다고 강해요나 상무당은 잡을 가요 지금 나랑 찍고도 그래서 좋고도 다 좋다고 왔죠. 대리들이 하자 농에 착취 모여요. 농에 이거 좀 모여요. 랑직부 동네들아. 근데 이 동네는 상 잡을 동네 잡을 더서 소지 동네에 채도세네. 근데 동네 총용도 요래. 배나 대답들이 쉽게 자체는 같은 사지 이비로 되게 동네 용성 특과치 좀 쉽게랑 생랑 철권 다시들이 하고 해야 돼.
And so the mind, the level of one's mind generation is something you have to see for yourself. So we say, we practice the Nyuna and we practice the Nina. But whatever vehicle perspective you're practicing it from depends on the generation of your own mind, whether or not you have given rise to love and compassion, immeasurable love and compassion. So the mind of the Mahayana begins with cultivating love for all beings, parents. So you begin with your mother and mothers. So you develop immeasurable love. So this is how you appear that maybe no difference at all.
Tata Kongre, Devata David Jotan Debar Church, David Joti Samti, Pena Devata David Josamti, Debar Church, Sango Red. Dongata Donga Jota Kawachi, Tata Donga Tamsi Suji Song. New movie, Dandi, the new movie, Lesa Song Chiama, Lesa Song, latest at that me with that Donga Joti Dandi. Say you're the Tawa Dardina to Papina, you mom wins in some 3 days and you when you want to draw your Hadakarchimo yore, take a near got that tani jet to your Dongatani jet to your 3 days, the Jesus don't make but they are Tambasam Dava Church to take your some of them. Don't make but they are Chimbo the same Koranaki, they are Chimbo. Semji nam도 상지에 있어 semji 탐지가 sem대 이제 상지에서 독시제는 까다성을 사실은 사자치 버려요 나카타버려 송고요래 사기 독시 음악 가르치는 음악에는 오 라그 세도 바탐제도다로 sem대 나카타버 나카를 계시면 보존에 동의 강함에 동의 매배 대화치 못해 라그 세고 내록도 Three doing maybe they were chimbo yore. Better than quite a case of meva. Yeah. They look at it. Dana same Satana. Same. They banka, mango, market, you want same crown. I see to put in the name. Don't get up. You can take your same crown. Get simple get such I am passive made. Lani so demon that can't be true on music channel. 다 토고통 등이 매매 대화치 못 오늘 대화치 뭐라고 샘토라 그래. 이 똑같이들이 샘디 등이 이제 파장 대외 이제 내가 같은 상태야. 소 대지를 소용 지는 다 등이 매매 대화치 못 뒤로 달래오는데 제가라고 샘담아 차고 그래. 그래 사지에서 랑 샘의 용선들도 샘담아 지잖아. 그래 대화치 뭐라고 샘 하는 건 아시지. 또 사자집은 공과 또 동사는 약고세서 가르잖아 가요 말이 누구 중앙을 때나 찍고 직장 빼서 남과다고 남들 봐도 때다고 차는 거요래 능이 내와 탑지 생글하지 에 누막다면 통투고요래
So I was kicked out and I missed the beginning of this and also the end of before. What I got is that the mind is beyond the birth and death. And then the 37 Bodhisattva practices in the beginning, it says that Chenrezig and they have realized that phenomena neither come nor go. And so that ultimately everything is within the mind. So the causes of suffering to be purified and the causes of happiness, love, to be restored are within the mind. So when you recognize the natural state of the mind, then all suffering will disappear and the mind becomes pure. So the Buddha had said, purify and tame your own mind. When the mind is purified, then naturally you will experience great happiness. And this is then actually the essence of Mahamudra practice. And from that perspective, for someone who practices Mahamudra, it all becomes the same. Whether somebody puts you up on a high throne or locks you up in prison, it all becomes the same, one and the same. So this is how it is for like space-like yogins. They recognize that it's all within the mind. Happiness and suffering are within the mind. They are like an illusion.
마음 가다냐 심신 탐지 삼나 가시가 오 랑같이 보래 마나 화자 센터고 매서나 추랑 그랑 삼나 추랑 이래 내와고 해오 뭐라 이래 내와고 또 추랑 이래 내와고나 이피로 어떻게 다 추내야 되고요래 주동에 잡라 아크테는 주 서버린 거래 이피서는 랑 잡라 방에 오면 베래 이피는 어떻게 체험을 팽겨래 대체는 오 말을 팽을 체지 이피를 놓치고 사는 다못 대체고 대체를 들릴까래더니 이피를 놓치는데 나랑 이게 매가 차로 그래 특과치 특과치 청소 용 제발 대 생부대 띠띠 하고 그래지
So there's this text that was translated into English also, the benefits of the Mahayana Sojong vows, or the Mahayana Sojong vows. And so when we think about all other sentient beings, this is what we need to bring to mind for it to be Mahayana. But then if you feel that I'm not able to do that because I cannot think about all sentient beings, I just think I'm most important. But even if you think in this way, if you think you're most important, then do you want to be happy? Then of course the answer is yes. So if you want to be happy, then you need to cultivate the altruistic mind. That will bring you happiness. So otherwise, you will just carry suffering with you on your back, and nobody will take it off you. So really, it's your own greatest benefit if you cultivate an altruistic mind. So really, this is how it begins. The beginning of cultivating an altruistic mind is really, in some way, in a way selfish. So you think that the altruistic mind is my own greatest benefit. So for this reason, we cultivate an altruistic mind. But this is really how we first begin to cultivate an altruistic mind, and then slowly we develop the altruistic mind, and then the self will naturally diminish. And so then turning into a Mahayana state of mind.
데르데니 다다 다트치 소중운데 저요는 드리더라 당보 뒤지고는 배용체가 송 대도 땡이 잡고는 송한데 대지 롱드 저리야 요리 조망부로 롱드 말로는 저건도 Direct Maka participating season of the Sanji Temba Targatus, the Rangatini, get on Tela de Bachi, Yamada, the Tata Sanji Man repeated the Tata Tela somewhat on the Payunchimo, so then I get the cup there teachable in Payunchiva Latini, Payunjina song with a Sojong Demba, Swapa, not 니가 찍었어요. 우리 저도서 삼점 잡았더니 계속 이 라서도 도마다 체파도 파파리 때마치게 송토고 요면 옛날 디 셀하와 강리 님티들 사바 찍도 나서 저를 좁아지 뒤서고 다도 공부하자고는 손에 나 찍송은 레버냐데 톱도 타바 상우 템버지 지 타바 상우 되게 로아를 놓고 농에 데이터 용노야 타톡들이 딱이 올 말이 데이터를 들으더니 인진을 사바 찍도나 데이터에 평치와 송송 소정도 나 찍송을 다들 피해다 롱 내리 들어가는 방법이오래 대터지 차트를 로트는데 연락 사지 까래 들리다다 Sung Wang the Tunatri, not Jiggly, Rang, Song Kang to Tawa Jam, Magi Jam, De La Soa Kang, give me get a Asoa. Sung to Sugar Wang the Tunatri, to Jiggle somewhere, Ping Salmon Java Tobar, Hajanoni, Jacka song, Tipping somebody. Sunam Namka Tatanyaba Shoki Jonga La Jonga Jetam Sunam Jonga Tetam the Deva Pasam Sopa Rimji Jonga in the Song. Some chili region of Seva Takayiba Lejang to me that La Sojong Domba Ni Chetam Songa Sunga Songa Chikabasambo Don't you in song.
So we are coming to this text, the benefits of the Mahayana Sojong vows. And so here it mentions first, there is the greater benefit in terms of time. And so there's some quotes such as from the King of Samadhi Sutra, that we will not read them all because it would take too much time, but you can read it yourself. But basically it is speaking about taking vows, or practicing a precept or a teaching during times when the Buddha's teachings are declining is a far greater benefit than to practice a vast, extensive dharmas, like making vast offerings and so on, like it is said here in the quote, to billions of sanghas and so on, at a time when the Buddha's teachings have actually spread. So that's a benefit in terms of time. It's more beneficial in brief to practice just even a single teaching, a single precept for a single day during times when the Buddha's teachings are declining. So now he is speaking here about just a single day and a single precept. The benefits of that are already inconceivable. Like for most people, it's difficult to keep all these many vows of gelongs and gitsus and so forth. But this practice is rather easy to perform. Lord Jigten Sumgyen also said in the Gongchik that the observance of a single vow leads to the result of nirvana, because you have planted a seed of liberation by practicing a single precept. And even though temporarily you might experience still some of the suffering in the 6 realms of samsara, ultimately this seed of liberation will not be lost. So it is a great benefit to take just a single vow and to practice that for a single day and night. So this is speaking about the benefits in terms of time, and you can also read this commentary in more detail on your own, but these are the actual words of the Buddha. So in terms of the number of vows, you can take 1 vow or the 4 root vows, or refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions. In terms of the timing, it is beneficial even to just take a vow for a single hour, and then even a greater benefit to take it for 24 hours. So here in the text, on page 1 towards the end, it compares these benefits to taking a vow in this way to a wish-fulfilling jewel. So it says if you can adopt this attitude, you're able to take the Sojong vows for just a single day during evil times such as these, it is a far greater fortune and far more meaningful than finding millions of wish-fulfilling jewels.
Sojong the Jatam Songa, they in the Sunam Pasantua, Deva Pasantua Topsong, they had a bodhichitta Yore, Tatan, Zambiling, Dungin Naban Hasan, Damare, Jinche Mepan Jungo Yore. Tata lower the Trimbi Mambo shadow, take it as Tonchi, Sabishaki, or Jinche me battery, Shawa, Suba, Dublin, the Dungi, Shabda Tenant, Jinche me by Yungo Yore, Tinani, Dungi, Chikamere Yore, Dungi Chika no Mam no Yore, Jakab Yore. 빼는 담는 축지 텐다 보니 봐 삼지 소거를 수시 작업하면서 로딘 작업을 통과자만 용거 됐다 작업은 작업 말이야 미망은 작업 말이야 때문에 가리지라 오 다른 게 듣방 먹이가 르바용 제일 뒤에 개서 좀 잡는 동네 용은 못해 동네 용고 말이야 다른 동네만 좀 이거래요 가지나 제 참치를 때 오다 쏟는 거 표현을 해서 상바된 hin기들이 야수는 취직된 강그톤이라는 걸 능아에서 사와야 꼬치와 탐지라 따등에 조금을 지양하면 대양 강그리지를 꼰초성을 짭주 레준대 하고네 들이란 게 꼰초성을 짭주도 말았더니 들이끼와 탐지를 들이지 쪽 듣고 요래 뺏지다를 레 가시라 동인 용은 동인 노트고요. 양대 네팔 미 드림 통과라 노 데라서가 정토고요. 제 강리지 동인 당호 동인 용 동인들이 양 쪽토고요. 쪽토바데 강이 지양하면 그 소종도 동발랑 니발을 샤과 제냐 생고 돈이 싸와니 양들이 양답과를 생도 싸마서 봐. 좀 대고 간 거. 양 동이 용 대서 용 들이를 쪽토고요. 야 빼대다가 소종 동바 배용 싸와니 레좀지 강양 마시바 레좀지를 이치 대가 내가 레좀지 마시라 누가 니발이만 만통이 루체 탑지도 수작 쪽토고요 말이야. 수작 쪽토고 레지를 내가 장도고요. 레지 왕치보래. 대다가들 비용시바에 짱마마 집지 다들 류라뜨서 스마같이 다들 레르뜨서 다다 동네 종나양 마음거리들 소종 됐다 버렸더니 다 레지 왕시네. 대대다냐니 제고래지. 너는 대왕이 상태까지 봐. 그리고 그래야지.
It also says in here that basically it is a far greater merit. It is the greatest merit. So that is whoever keeps the Sojong vow, and for however long keep this vow, the greater the merit and the more perfect the happiness one attains. So this is very meaningful. So it's also here on page 1 when it speaks about merit. This is extremely meaningful, especially during times such as these. Nowadays, where there's so much suffering in the world, so people may think that now is the time where all the suffering happens. Now is where everyone suffers so much. But this is really not true, because people suffer all the time, continuously. It is just that now, all of a sudden, we see a lot of people dying. But actually, people die all the time, continuously, and they are born and so on. So if you look very closely at the circumstance of this world, you will see that there is suffering ongoing all the time. And then there's also some who do not experience any suffering. There's some individuals, there's also certain countries. For example, there's this country, Switzerland, Rinpoche had heard that even though the First and Second World Wars have raged at that time, Switzerland actually did not engage in war for 700 years. There's countries like that, and then there's also individuals who do not experience much suffering. And that is because when their own negativities and misdeeds are not as strong, then also one experiences less suffering. So it is because we engage in negative actions that suffering arises. And now this is what is happening too. So when you see this from this perspective, you see the benefits of the Sojong practice. So what is to be restored is love and compassion in all of our activities. If that is reflected in all of your activities, body and speech, then you will not experience suffering. So when we do not experience suffering, why is that? It is also because already in a previous life, we, for example, were able to take refuge into the three jewels, and we have understood karma. So we have taken the refuge vow in the presence of the three jewels in the past, and as a result now in this life, and in all future lives, one will be protected. And then even though you might experience some difficulties, there is a way out sometimes. For example, if you're sick, then a medicine might be effective, or if you're poor, then wealth will come along your way, and so on. So there's a way to avoid suffering. And that is because in the previous life, you might have taken a Sojong vow. And having taken a Sojong vow, even though you might have committed wrong, you might have recognized that wrong and confessed it. And as a result, even though the negativity is not entirely purified in the mind, so you might experience some suffering and fear in this life, but also because you have confessed and recognized that in the past, there will be some kind of protection in this life. So that is the benefit of the Sojong vows. On the other hand, if one is someone who doesn't trust in karma at all, who doesn't understand karma at all, they don't even see the fault in negative actions. And when that ripens, then there is nothing and no one that can protect them. Then one will just follow the course of one's own karma. Because the force of karma is really determining, it's most important. So it is said, if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body. If you wish to know where you will go next, look at your present actions. So even though you might now experience some suffering, if you now practice the Sojong, then you know that in the future you will be protected. So you engage in the practice based on an understanding of karma. So in brief, what you really recognize is that what is really kind to you, what is doing you a favor, and what is the cause of all happiness is love.
돼지고기 비용치가 아성 돼지고기 비용치와라 뒤에더니 선진을 깡님만 뭐 따뜻하면 정상 정보 좀 깡들이 가리를 세면 초와 능력치 뭐요래 그래서 아직 탐색을 능력요는 능력이 돈다 따뜻한 정제가 돈이 싸는 것은 저기 뭐래 송 대라대 최저 따지게 왔는 것들이 사바든 희지체가 갖다더니 수능 치와리 들이 현당 삼반제가 와서 심지어 동해처럼 희지체가 갖다 모남 따라들이 들이 하장들이 같이 모여래 루가에 쭉쭉 들어가래 다바된 잡을 동해들 삼노당 소수 동해를 삼노 마당 그 잡으려는 매인지과 체인지과 던지과 가리용으로 다 내지지과 레바리 진체 매바동에도 정도요 진짜와 가리를 더 진짜 샘을 더샘 나중에 더 유무마를 더 어렸지 소속이 되다 노바들라나 차발 팽개를 데려고 쌍구요 가시게 오 샘이 이제 찌그리 유무마 찌그리 노아를 좀 가리나 나지 찌과리 들이 마시면 마르바게 다진이 찌과리 되게 가다 지금 소종 동말 땅은 지속이 뒤삼바다 줘가고 네바가 추들이 생기 탐지를 팽거래 들이 몇개가 그야도는 생기 탐지에 되어와서 되버졌다 내버렸지 사지가 뭐는 잡서 이 샘이 찌과에 기와 강세에 앞에나 삼지는 참말을 잡고 그래 뉴모를 내사 어떻게 양 참말을 그래 배는 몇개 시당나무나 미강박한 참말 샘마대와 차용을 빼대다 세분내롭게 하고는 이 감들을 못한다고 고갑에서 사고 그랬다 나는 야미게 보고 취당 동해가 이보래 동해가 이보래 답을 삼았던 때 소소라는 동해를 더 맞았더니 야미게 고갑 취당 받더니 야미지 받치고 랩탑고 요래 대회 다른 창것들이 하자 같이 모래던 데를 모랑 자야다 소정리야 드리다 기와도야 드리 하자 짜치 모래
So there is the greater benefit in terms of time. And so this is a time now when many sentient beings experience a lot of suffering and a lot of fear. And the suffering is experienced within their minds. Self and others experience a lot of suffering. So at that time, think about karma, and that it all has a cause. It is the result of actions committed with a mind of afflictive emotions. And so therefore, when you practice virtue, when you cultivate love and compassion during such a time, it becomes really very powerful. When you practice virtue, really for the sake of others, with a mind of love and compassion, then the merit is even greater. Because we mentioned before, we have to unify the field, which is other beings, with our intention, and then the benefit is much greater. So when sentient beings experience a lot of suffering and you cultivate compassion for them, and then with a mind of compassion for others you make a prayer, then the power of that will be so much greater. So this is how we practice unifying body, speech, and mind. So think about the suffering of the world and don't think about your own suffering. Beings in the world experience a lot of fear. There is the fear of fire and hunger and so on. And now especially there is the fear, the suffering of disease. Actually, there is uninterrupted suffering in the world. And what is the root of it? It is within the mind. It all comes down to self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. So there is actually some who recognize that if they take a vow, like such as this, everyone will benefit from it. And that is because one's mind, the mind of all beings has a single basis. So our minds have a single basis, our afflictive emotions are one and the same, our self-grasping is one and the same. It is just that due to ignorance we don't recognize that. And also our dualistic grasping at self and other is all one and the same. So therefore, if one person takes the Sojong vows, then however strong their intention is, to that extent, sentient beings, all sentient beings will benefit from that. So if one person says, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, because our minds have a single basis, this intention pervades all sentient beings. And then likewise, if one person is afflicted and engages in afflicted action, that will also harm all sentient beings. For example, imagine there's one person in the room who is very angry, and everyone in the room will feel uncomfortable. So those who understand the nature of the mind understand that. So now this is a very special time for us, and a special opportunity for us to practice, to take vows and to pray. The Dharma is an antidote to suffering. So this is a time to think about the entire world and its suffering. And by thinking in this way and practicing in this way, you will become free. You will free yourself from your own suffering, and also you will develop the power to benefit others in their suffering. So this is really a very special opportunity, a very important time for us to practice, for us to take the Sojong vows and to pray, to practice virtue. So this is really a very precious opportunity.
니바 뒤집어는 비용, 여집어는 비용 지와서 여집 비용 지와라더니 닭고식한 탐지를 기와 남다 까빠받을 빨리 좀 마다베식한 니들이 기와 나 찍으면 비용 지에서 다 마다데 가리 레좀비 심시 시라버티리 좀비 심하지 딜레 때와레스 레좀비 마치베티 열대형들이 시대대형 마다바까지 생구 내려오고 마호바 준비 내가 좀 마시바 동네 좀빵 마시바 내가 좀 마시바 때렸더니 때려 세마다 바카리마다 세마다래 세그리마다 뉴모바마다 다디마다 뉴모바마다 들 시당 친구 차도 지고 들 무고도 치마도 최대 찍고 상무 당들 롱바타 제라 들이 샘지 싸마사 보시라비요 말에 데이터가 다다다 데이터가 뭐지네 데이터 제라 들이 다다 다 레전드 제시자 파스 벤스 돌랭지 들이지도 비용 기비 비용 대부분이 맥대라서 상무 좀 제시야 담이 들이 소속의 냐미제나 그냥 탁발들이 나그 시에 들이 세부들이 그냥 탁발이 잡지 놓는데 노마다다가 나치를 랑나야 들이 다 화장품 제발이 인성
And then the second benefit is the benefit regarding the locations. And so it is said that it is a far greater merit to practice a single virtue in an impure land than it is to practice perfect virtue for aeons in the pure lands. So these impure lands and pure lands, what really makes the difference? It depends on whether or not the individuals understand karma. So if they do not understand karma, then the land is an impure land. So this is what it is the mind that makes it impure. It is when we don't understand karma, when we do not understand the nature of the mind, when we do not know how to create the causes of happiness, and we do not know how to abandon the causes of suffering. So this is what makes the land impure. It's an impure mind. It's an impure mind of self-grasping, of afflictive emotions, of very powerful hatred and jealousy and so forth. A very strong belief in the true existence of appearances and only being concerned about this life. So there are certain countries, for example, where people's minds are not as pure and they lack wisdom. So then what we do is we explain the workings of karma to each other. We discuss the Dharma with each other. We engage in virtuous activities. We share the benefit of virtue and the shortcomings of non-virtue. We explain karma. And so if you practice in this way, really from the bottom of your heart, so from the bottom of your heart, you explain the teachings in this way, and also with your mind, you are keeping even just a single vow. The benefits of that are really incredible.
Sojong Garchen Yingit 다 콤바타는 매 sabde chena들이 체주가서 랑랑 너게 강이 혼자 대사제샤 조법감이 대사제게 리스게 신바 워보 그리고 소소 맞지를 갈아서야 내가 대다고 줄라 그리 공개 좀대 리세자는 들 konjang jene ti ko te pa che sa ko ni ga so ma che ti ko khala yo ma le ti chang chin ju ka do ma lang song ti ji de ni mo ga pa yang mu chi ga zeng le ti chin ju ka te ni ni ju ka ni ya wa ta chin ju ka de ya to pa de la to kon de la no ma bo yo le pe na chin ju ka pa ni ya ka do ma lang sa ti ke lang ti ni ko de ya so ke le ka lang do le ka che ko na de ke yo le ti ta ta che pa ki ri sa je tu je ke so ma re
So then, there's in terms of the timing, there are some who do not have the time to practice the 8-branch Sojong vows for this duration of time, like for an entire day, because they're very busy. But then it is also actually suitable to take it for like half a day, for example. There's a story in the Vinaya teachings of the time when the Buddha was alive. There was a very poor butcher, and so he made a living with butchering animals. So without that, he wouldn't have any food. So then the Buddha came to explain to him on the purpose of karma, and he developed fear and devotion. And so then he said that he would not be able to not kill during the daytime, because that way he wouldn't have food to eat. But he could take a vow of not killing at nighttime, where he doesn't kill anyways. So he took that vow. And then Mongoli Buddha, one of those Buddha's disciples, with his clairvoyance, he saw that that person who took that vow, that Buddha, at daytime in the future life, then he experienced hell, and at nighttime he experienced great bliss. So there's also stories like that in the Vinaya, where one can take a vow for the nighttime. So, for example, if you can't keep a vow during the daytime, you can take it at night. Take the vow, offer prostration, and then you go to sleep. And then in the morning you get up and you go about your daily activities, your jobs, and so on. And you still have taken a vow. So that's a very special, skillful means that was given by the Buddha with his great compassion.
드리기는 다다드나 드리 가자 나만 나토요래 같이 소탈 같이 상생 같이 상하 드리 로마탑제를 담다요래 대탑이야 너가 소소소소 리나 가까이요래 소탈거를 접하담지가 영화가 너무 쪼래 드리 hin이 나게는 강롱마데 강로마데 쪼래 드리 상신이네 드리 재미지는 사바 재미다 이게 재미 원네 들이 약간 뭐람 잡아 대기 제모요래 사바스미든 이제 재미고는 이 코가 대도 말에 들이 상하게는 들이 후아진 바다 나딘 바 들이 나와 탐지 사다 가와 나를 전에 들이 사다 나지 바데 들이 상하게 디바 치모리 이 상하게 탐지 대다 도마서 도바시 말 사당 나선 도바 렉션 들이라는 가다게 냠추다 들이 도발링고요래 들이 뭐 피누체체체로 그래. 되는 체받다 봐들이 상하게 들이 나다를 선지 나와 화타방하 되도 싫어 봐서 되게 하자는 같이와래.
And then there's all sorts of different individuals. There's different disciples, some who have more like a connection to the individual liberation, some are more drawn to the bodhisattva path, and some more to the Vajrayana path. So there's many different kinds of disciples, and therefore there's also many different ways of taking vows. So for example, if one belongs more to the individual liberation kind, then in this context, the vows of body and speech are principle. And then you would take, for example, the 8 branch Nina vows in that context of individual liberation. And then there are those who are of the bodhisattva kind, and for them, Bodhi's principle is the cultivation of the 4 immeasurables, in particular, immeasurable love and compassion. So you can take a vow, for example, before you go to sleep, you cultivate immeasurable love and compassion, and then make a prayer, and then you go to sleep, and then you have taken a vow. And then according to the Vajrayana, it is to remember the deity and to remember the mantra, that all appearances are the deity and all sound is the mantra. So then if you're able to recall this, then it becomes even more powerful. So basically you should practice according to which kind you really belong to. So there's 3 kinds of individuals really, and 3 ways of taking vows. So according to the Vajrayana, for example, which is most beneficial, it is we speak about sights, sounds, and the mind. So all sights, all appearances are the deity, all sounds are the mantra, and what arises in the mind is the display of primordial wisdom. So if you see it this way, then it becomes even more powerful.
그래서 닭감나 습절라 주로 남의 rolling 난 내가 차상난 들리면서 자난지.
So now for 30 minutes, Dharma friends, please discuss with each other, use the restroom and rest.
오만에 뱀에 오리 오만에 뱀에 오리 오만에 뱀에 오리 오만에 SagaDawa